Okay, colleagues, please take a seat, or if you need to go to other commitments, other meetings, because now we have the consideration of draft report of Mr. Hajšel on European Hydrogen Bank. European Hydrogen Bank being one important initiative of European Commission in order to achieve our goals and clearly to be more independent and to be ready for Fit for 55. The rapporteur, Mr. Hajšel, will present his draft report. Then, of course, I will give the floor to the shadows. I think we have also European Commission here. Yes, thank you so much for being with us. And then, of course, at the end, the rapporteur will respond to all these interventions. Mr. Hajšel, you have the floor to present your draft report.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Christian. So, thank you for the floor. The own initiative report on the Hydrogen Bank, I think it's clear, will define our position, I mean the position of the Parliament on this file. And it will, I think, frame the discussion on domestic production especially, and the public funding for renewable hydrogen, shape our position on importation, deepen reflections on sustainability and geographical balance. Let me say some few really words about my draft report. First of all, renewable hydrogen is the only sustainable path in the medium and long term. We need to deliver more on the manufacturing of electrolyzers, the deployment of affordable renewable energies, and the infrastructures for transporting hydrogen. As of now, electrolyzers account for less than 4% of total hydrogen production in the EU. At the same time, most projects involve production and consumption at the same place because of a lack of infrastructure. That should be a signal for us what to do. Then, secondly, support for the domestic productions really should get our priority, I would say, our focus. The EU should target domestic production because of three main reasons. There is a limited budget because of investment also by China and the US, and because of low production cost in the third countries for renewable hydrogen, especially in Africa or in Southern America. Now on imports, I agree that EU will need renewable hydrogen also from third countries because of our targets that we set up in the in the EU, I mean 10 million tons. However, we should protect our consumers, defend our producers, and maintain our green ambitions, I mean with a robust certification framework for imports. Third, the Hydrogen Bank should prioritize hard-to-abate industries and heavy transport. This is really priority for me. It's clear that renewable hydrogen will remain scarce. It will remain really insufficient, even with the public support. The Commission should restrict the use of renewable hydrogen to the sectors where electrification is really difficult. I mean, steel, fertilizers, planes, maritime transport, cement, chemicals. The fourth, it's not enough, I mean, it's about the budget. And the actual budget proposed by the Commission is really not enough, and it's out of our ambitions. Our targets for domestic production will require investment between 300 and 500 billions, according to estimation of the Commission. Then another 500 billions we need for importations. So far, Hydrogen Bank has a budget of 3 billion euros. So in comparison with the US, what the US provides, I mean, in terms of tax credits going up to $3 per kilogram, it's really, which represent totally, I mean, hundreds of billions. So this is really peanuts, what we dedicate. So considering the industrial policies in China and the US, we need to wake up before it's too late, and we should really, I think, step up our game. On this aspect, I welcome the request of the Commission for top-up of the Innovation Fund, and we have to profit of. We should call on the Commission to allocate a significant part of this top-up that should go really to Hydrogen Bank also. 5, I'm not only concerned about the budget allocation for the Hydrogen Bank, but also about the geographical balance. Here, I would say that there is a risk that smaller member states will not succeed in auctions, especially in the Central and Eastern Europe, from very evident, I would say, reasons that it should be familiar for you. That's why I propose to change the scope of auctions for the future. I mean, suggest moving from the EU-wide auctions to regional scope. To be clear, I could explain you. It means that we can create auctions for geographical regions or areas that would be large enough to secure adequate competition for funding and would still guarantee geographical balance. Furthermore, the draft asks for grants covering electrolyzers for actors that are not connected to the producers of renewable hydrogen. And in some instances, and I suppose that it will evolve in our discussion with the shadow rapporteurs, I think these electrolyzers could produce low-carbon hydrogen at the condition they eventually could switch to renewable hydrogen. But this is really conditions sine qua non. I would say, finally, the communication of the Commission lacks provisions on sustainability and on social aspects. This is, for me as S&D, very important. Renewable hydrogen requires fresh water. Electrolyzers use critical raw materials and advanced chemicals. We should promote resource efficiency and circularity. At the same time, we should ensure the project deliver quality jobs, traineeship, upskilling and reskilling of workers. For this reason, this draft calls on the Commission to propose a system of bonus points taking into account sustainability and social conditionality. We are lacking time. I think I'm running out of time. And so in the conclusion, I would say now, thanks in advance to shadow rapporteurs and to all the MEPs who are involved in this file for the swift cooperation. We have already organized a first round of, I would say, informal meeting of shadows where we have really had very, I would say, constructive exchange of views. So thank you, and I'm looking forward for further cooperation. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hajšel. I go now to the first round and invite the shadow rapporteurs to comment on your report and your proposal. 2 minutes indicative in order to have the necessary time for the debate, for each intervention. And I start with DPP and Mrs. Spiraki.
Thank you very much, Chair, for giving me the floor. I would like just to thank the Rapporteur at very first level because of his initiative report, and I would like to underline that Hydrogen Bank is only a part of the instruments that we have to use in order to increase and address the target of our strategic autonomy. And by saying that, I would like to clarify that Hydrogen Bank will be used in order to support the auction. The first auction is only on testing the waters on how the demand and supply chain is working in the EU, and also to tackle the bottleneck effect, which we can all understand it is occurring in terms of innovative ideas and under the support of the joint undertaking of clean hydrogen, and also to commercialize innovative ideas into practice. Hydrogen Bank could be also an instrument in order to support infrastructure. But allow me to say that Hydrogen Bank is not a suite that will fit for all. And in this regard, I think that we have to focus on specific issues. First, how can we support the issue of auctions in order to send a very clear message to the global market that we are ready to lead and pave the way of clean hydrogen, because hydrogen bank is only dedicated to clean hydrogen according to the delegated act, which is following the RED III, and it is important to understand that it is something that it will be used for this reason. First, it is the success of the first auction to test the waters. Second is the premium that we have to give. According to my opinion, the premium should be at least equal with the premium to the US, which means in the US it is $3, and consider this. Second, we have to understand that hydrogen bank is something that it is fully aligned with the Net Zero Act. So we have to use hydrogen bank in order to increase the level of sufficient infrastructure, not only to repurpose the existing, but also to install CCS and CCU in order to transform grey hydrogen into blue at the very first level, and of course to increase the production of electrolyzer. To conclude, we have to have a holistic approach when it comes to the way we use the financial instruments in order to increase our capacity in clean hydrogen, and particularly the hydrogen bank. With saying this, I think that hydrogen bank is a significant step in order to establish the regulated and competitive hydrogen market, but we have to consider that first of all, we have to have a market which is based on demand and supply issues. And in this regard, I think that the message we have to send to the market should be clear, should be stable, it should be predictable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Spiraki. On behalf of Renew, Mr. Grotius.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Rapporteur, for the file, because I think that we share the ambition to make something out of this hydrogen bank. And for the people of the Commission here today, I would like to say the first thing stating it's not a bank and we shouldn't do too much with it is not the right approach. I think Parliament, we see it from all shadow rapporteurs, has more ambition. Let me start with the auction. First of all, it's not just that the IRA is there and we have an auction. It's also a way of communicating to businesses that we have this auction and that we that our support for producing green hydrogen here is here just as well as in the US. I agree with the rapporteur, we need more, so we share that ambition. But we have that. The second is on infrastructure. I very much agree with the rapporteur that we need the Repower EU, the 10 million import and the 10 million domestic, and we need infrastructure. But also we need to make sure that LNG terminals and the lessons that we learned there, we apply those for hydrogen terminals. And I would really like to see some investments going there to make sure that we address the import strategy of the EU. And that also implies, which is not exactly the hydrogen bank, but we really need diplomacy here as well, which is outside of scope of this. But I'd really like to make a remark to that, because diplomacy with Chile, with Colombia, but also in the Middle East, etc., we need that. Then we have the Net Zero Industry Act for being champion in net zero technologies, sure. But we need to make sure that we are champion in standardization as well. That's this hydrogen bank is for. Guarantees of origin, certification, that's what it's for. But even more, I would like to see the ambition really concrete and not just a test, but it's really, we have to make sure that hydrogen is being traded in euros, not in dollars. This is a geopolitical goal that we should have in Europe. Hydrogen is a commodity, should be traded in euros. We all know what we can do with that. We've seen it in the past, and we know what we can do with Russia in the future if we make sure that happens. So the ambition is bigger than the Commission has currently proposed, I would say. Then another point is the liquidity in the markets. I would say that the hydrogen bank, although it's not a bank, I know, but we could do more to make sure that liquidity is there, that we could do something with insurances, that we make sure that we ramp up and we start the green hydrogen market like Jens Geier in his strategy, which I also was shadow rapporteur on, also said. We need to ramp it up. This is an instrument, and let's make sure we do. Then there's lots of discussion whether it should have a facility, whether this is a new EU institution or not. Well, sure it is. And once you have a hydrogen bank, and you can keep reporting, it's not a bank, it's not a bank, it's not a bank, but once you have it, you can also say, okay, we have this and this and this functionality, we have this and this ambition, it might grow, we might do something with it. So I would say we need a building, we need something concrete. And I see the Commission, they refute that, they have a reluctancy. I think that the ambition from the Parliament should be much more. There should be an institution, it should do stuff in the future. Last but not least, I think I'm a bit more reluctant, dear Rapporteur, on social schemes and job security and what you have. I think it's out of scope of this hydrogen bank. I have ambition too, but not in that one. I'd like to thank you and all the shadow rapporteurs. Give the floor back to you, Chair, and I'm really looking forward to this file and making it into a success.
Thank you so much, Mr. Grotius. The Greens are represented by Mr. Solé. The shadow, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I see that so far the shadow rapporteurs are physically aligned in the same line in the room. Let's see if we are also politically more or less aligned. First of all, I want to thank the rapporteur, Mr. Hajšel, for this draft report, which already includes some very good recommendations. We want the hydrogen bank, although bank probably is not the best name for such a mechanism, to become an instrument that consolidates the EU's leadership on this emerging global market for renewable energy, hydrogen. And we believe that the EU should be the trend and a standard setter in this sector, and this hydrogen bank could be helpful to this, especially in order to make renewable hydrogen cost competitive, which I think is the most pressing need. In particular, I appreciate the recommendations on water use, since, as we know, water use is very intensive, and in some regions affected by water scarcity, that might be an issue. And also focus on environmental sustainability and geographical balance in the distribution of renewable hydrogen projects. Our goal should be to develop production plants where they are needed, where there is or there will be demand, and avoid investing in stranded infrastructure. One recommendation that I would like to reinforce is keeping the focus on renewable hydrogen only. The EU already has a policy framework that sets an international standard with a clear methodology and some targets, and our partners are looking at us, including the United States, in their implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act. So for us, it is an important point. And another aspect that I would like to reinforce in the report concerns the demand side of the future market for renewable hydrogen. The communication focuses on the supply side, but we should make sure that renewable hydrogen flows towards those uses where it has the biggest potential in terms of emissions savings and energy efficiency. So to focus on the sectors where it has more sense to do that. And when it comes to the international leg of the bank, this is my last remark, we should avoid recreating dependencies like those we have with gas, for instance, but we also should not undermine the efforts of our partners to achieve their own energy transitions. And I leave it here, looking forward to the negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solé. On behalf of the shadow of the ECR, who is Mrs. Beata Sitzlo, I invite Mr. Tobisowski to take the floor.
Thank you very much. W imieniu europoseł pani Beaty Szydło.
Now, on behalf of Ms. Szydło, I'd like to present her point of view. Now, in the strategic documents of the European Union, for example, the hydrogen strategy or REPowerEU, hydrogen is on the rise. This is important for many sectors and many ambitious projects in the European Union. Hence, the idea of the hydrogen bank, which would be supplying hydrogen to many sectors of the European economy. Many actions in this vein are important, and they assist in creating a competitive hydrogen market, but they are far from being ideal. I'd like to focus on certain solutions which have not been considered so far, and that is the transport infrastructure and storing or bunkering of hydrogen. This needs further work. What is being proposed is also, there's also a missing element, the premiums valorization, which exposes the customers to the price risk. And the newly created companies have financial problems. Now, what is positive about this draft report is that there are new elements which cater for example, geographical balance. We need to make sure that there is a scenario present where the production is concentrated wherever there are regions prone to such production. An idea of auctions is to be considered as valuable in itself. Hence, we are looking forward to our common work on the project. We also put forward some amendments. I'd like to thank you for the work so far.
Thank you so much. Now we go to colleagues that would like to intervene on this issue, and I start with Mr. Geier, SND. Yes, it's...
Da ist der Knopf. Dankeschön.
Thank you to Robert Hajšel for his excellent work. I largely agree with him and with Bart on the social aspects. But I have some concerns, and I want to support what Robert said in this, that given the huge financial requirements we need in terms of the funding of the hydrogen economic, the resources available are very low, and I think we have to try all possible routes to get more funds from the member states, from the private sector, to flow into this hydrogen facility to ensure that the urgently needed investments in the REPowerEU and in the imports into the EU. I look forward to the final report of the Commission, which will be the final piece of the jigsaw for the hydrogen strategy. We have adopted the directive on renewable energy, which covers the energy policy aspects of the hydrogen approach. We have the ambition, we know where it's going. In this committee, we have concluded the directive on the market organization, and with that there'll be nothing more standing in the way of hydrogen production in the EU.
Thank you, Mr. Geier. Mr. Pekarinen, please.
Yes, this time in Finnish. Okay, kiitoksia.
Thank you for the work so far. The objective to increase from 0.3 million green hydrogen ton in the EU to 10 million tons seems like a big amount. In practice, it is not that much. I think it means an energy content about 33 terawatt hours, which is 1/3 of Finland's yearly electricity consumption, or 1/10 of Finland's whole energy consumption. So not that much. With these objectives, Europe, I think, is not a global leader. Far from it in the hydrogen sector. China, for example, the US, many other regions are moving a lot faster than us. And in 2030, they'll be even further from us. But this objective, 10 million tons, even reaching that, well, that will be difficult if we're not able to get rid of this egg phenomenon. So the producers don't trust that there is demand, and vice versa. And we should try to find solutions. And one way would be to pay attention and encourage not only the industry and the transport, but also derivatives of hydrogen, ammoniac, methylene, and other productions should be boosted, and the demand side there and the potential there. When it comes to supply, we need to revitalize the production of electrolyzers. I would like to highlight, Chair, that the ongoing two IPSCE projects, we have many good companies on the sector. It's very important that this auctioning can be organized in a similar way, and in a way that being part of IPSCE and in the sphere of its financing, that it does not bring unnecessary benefits to those companies which participate in the auctions, and the companies who are part of IPSCE should not be thrown off this competition. It's very important that we have neutral competition conditions for different companies, those who are part of in the IPSCE projects and those who are not there at the moment. And to finish, the ITRE delegation could come to Finland. We have a large hydrogen power plant there upcoming. Our delegation went there already, but we could go there again. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. González Casares, please.
Gracias, Presidente.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to Robert for the draft report, which we've just approved the Renewables Directive, and this is an important complement for the targets for the member states for 2030 and 2035 is important for transport, and renewable hydrogen will be essential for meeting the targets and in other areas too. But we need a financial push like the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, and the draft report identifies the key points. But I'd like to mention a few points that are of concern. Hydrogen needs to be prioritized, but we have to take care with the role of hydrogen in terms of low carbon, because funds are limited. We look at imports, but we have to be careful what we import. They have to comply with the same low carbon criteria that we have in the EU, and we have to prioritize sectors with difficulties of supply. They have to be prioritized. The industry that's difficult to decarbonize, and we have to leave space for the SMEs so that they can tap the potential of renewable hydrogen in Europe. So thank you, and thank you to Robert for a very balanced report.
Thank you, Mr. González Casares. Mrs. Penkova, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, of course, I would also start by addressing Robert for his great work so far. I think it's very clear for us that hydrogen is going to be quite needed in the mix of in the EU energy mix for the long term. We definitely need liquefied storage of energy, and hydrogen is probably the best option for the heavy industry and the heavy transport. However, we still need to be working a bit more on the further clarifications and assurances on the EU funding, which would be dedicated to the hydrogen bank. I do welcome very much the idea of dividing the EU into several large regions in order to create an allocation key and to distribute sufficient funding between them, because this is the only way to make sure that we're not going to leave anyone behind. So we should be working a bit more into that direction. Of course, as all of the colleagues said so far, the priority should be to have domestic production of hydrogen, And together with Robert and his cooperation, we're trying to address that in the Net Zero Industry Act, where I'm the shadow rapporteur, because the hydrogen was not included in the initial proposal of the European Commission, but we've introduced some amendments, and with the help of Robert and Jens, of course. So we added to the list of technologies, and that would help us to enable the energy transition. We are highlighting the leading role of the upcoming European Hydrogen Bank as the one-stop shop for EU funding to support the entire renewable hydrogen value chain. We are prioritizing hydrogen compressors, transport via pipelines, and refueling stations. I just think it's important to re-emphasize how the two legislations are working together. So we're going to continue that cooperation. I think those are the most important points I wanted to highlight. And today, again, thanks to Robert for the hard work and for the cooperation to make sure that all the legislations are going together in the same direction.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Svetlana. If there are no other requests for interventions, I will invite European Commission representative, Mrs. Edith Hofer, Deputy Head of Unit on Decarbonization and Sustainability of Energy Sources in DG NR, to present the European Commission position on the report of Mr. Hajšel. Please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to start my intervention to thank in particular you, Rapporteur Hajšel, and in particular also your team for the work on this draft initiative report on the Hydrogen Bank communication. We welcome very much and appreciate that you have prepared this own initiative report action on our communication, because we consider this as a very important topic. And I would also like to thank the shadows and the other members of parliament who now intervened for your comments. I would say we agree with the majority of your comments, but I'll get back to some of them in this short intervention. For us, this communication on the European hydrogen is really crucial, in particular to establish the dedicated support for the domestic and for the international hydrogen markets. So this needs to be created, and therefore this will also support, or the communication of the European Hydrogen Bank will also support the development towards the decarbonization of the EU energy system. As I said before, we can support many of the points you have raised now, and in particular also which are in the report. Some of the issues I would like just to mention, for example, the need for a strong focus on ramping up domestic production. So with a strong focus on domestic production, but also acknowledging that there is a need for hydrogen imports, because we will not be able to produce everything immediately in Europe. The importance of a geographically balanced approach and diversifying the supplies, so to see also that hydrogen develops across Europe. We also underline strongly the priority use of hydrogen in hard-to-abate sectors. This is something which we have underlined several times in the past. The importance of sustainability and environmental aspects, and there in particular the water use. When it comes to environmental permits, I just would like to mention that this will be covered already by the auction design of the domestic auction, which will be launched later this year. What we don't want to do is create new administrative burdens, so we believe that this will be already addressed. And then we also very much underline always the need for robust certification schemes for imports of renewable hydrogen, which should be equivalent to the rules which are applying for domestic production. And this is already applied or under implementation today. What we very much welcome, obviously, is the strong support I heard here for increasing the budget of the European Hydrogen Bank. And we also need, as several of you mentioned, a particular budget for the international leg of the Hydrogen Bank, which is currently missing. Therefore, I would like to call on all of you in the ITRE Committee, but also to your colleagues across the European Parliament, to maintain this strong support in the ongoing budget negotiations, including for the midterm review of the MFF. There are a couple of small elements where we would like to caution you and ask for a careful analysis, and this is in particular when it comes to strict requirements on future auction designs. This includes developing common auction criteria for allowing the participation of third countries, or the proposal to develop a bonus point system to ensure that not only price criteria are considered in auctions. It's not that we are totally against it, but we would like to ask you for a careful analysis. And one last point, which I would also like to mention regarding your report, as this is out of the scope of the discussions on the European Hydrogen Bank, and this is actually the process of dealing with the prolongation and the legal basis of the EU energy platform. This, as you know, this has been established by a special council regulation, and there are discussions ongoing on potential extension of this aggregate EU, but we are planning to have this included in the hydrogen and gas market decarbonization package. So as I said, this is already under discussion, but outside of the scope of the Hydrogen Bank. With that, I would like to reiterate our willingness to further support the development of this report, and we are stand ready to also answer any questions you might have, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hajšel, please, it's your turn now to react to the shadows' comments. A lot of support, of course, and this is good. And also, if you would like to comment also on the European Commission intervention, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, dear Christian. Thank you to all colleagues, especially shadows, but not only shadows, for your valuable comments. I appreciate very much. I support many of your ideas, and I assure you that I will table it, and it's my intention to table it as amendments, because you know that we are limited in the size, because it's our own report, initiative, own report, so we are very limited in the size of our report. Then I would say that if I can come back to very specific comments here, as our shadow rapporteur, Maria Spiraki, said, we need to tackle bottlenecks. I think that this is also the purpose of this report, and we have to promote innovation. And I fully agree that our support should also align with the steps done by the US, because we are competing on the global world. And as also Maria and also Jens Geier said, and also Commission, and I'm very happy that Commission shares our common joint, I would say, view that 800 million is not really enough. It's a peanut, yeah, to say bluntly. And as Svetlana said, we also need to streamline EU funds. This is also an opportunity to do it. And as many of you highlighted regarding the name of all this, as a hydrogen bank, this is a little bit exaggerated, a little bit specific. Surely, for me, it's not a bank. I also, I put it, or I would put it maybe more in a clearer way in the amendments that will follow. Maybe what we can, how to frame it, how to name it, because this is a little bit misleading. Share colleagues from the Commission, as Bart mentioned. On diplomacy and trading in Euro, I fully agree, and in my draft report, it's already mentioned, and we need strong partnership, but also we have to avoid dependency on third countries, like it was in case of gas imported from Russia. And as Jordi said, what I appreciate very much, that we need to prioritize hard-to-abate sectors and also avoid investing in stranded assets. This is really where the support should go. It's where there is a demand and where are the conditions for it. Otherwise, this is really stranded asset, and that will keep polluting for decades, and this is not what we want. And as Grzegorz mentioned, I mean, ECR, we need more infrastructure to also for the transport and for storing the hydrogen. And I'm looking forward to seeing also your amendments, and I assure that also I am preparing, so we can also cooperate cooperate on this. I think we should use existing storage for gray hydrogen, also for renewable hydrogen. It can be used, and we have to do it if we have something in place. And I think, yes, I agree with the Commission in some terms. We should be cautious for the future. You mentioned this bonus system, for example, but really, I think that we as a MEPs, because it's our own report, we can allow for us more liberty to do and to mention something which is important also for us. And finally, let me reinstate that I want to collaborate in a good spirit with all of you, especially with all the shadows representing all the MEPs, and my objective is really to find a compromise solution which will, in a balanced way, I would say, picture our, I would say, European Parliament's view on this very important issue. So thank you very much. And I want to say to my fellows, to the shadow rapporteurs, that the official, because we had already one informal shadows meeting, but I think I scheduled for the mid of September, the first official after the publishing the report. So thank you very much to